Hello and welcome to the NMCA Way. Michael Chekhov. We are on the topic of characterization as a broad series, and today's particular tool or technique or grounds is the imaginary body. I am Lisa Dalton, president and co-founder of the National Michael Chekhov Association, and here is my colleague.
Hi there, Wil Kilroy, the Vice President of the National Michael Chekhov Association, one of the founders. And so today, as Lisa said, we're working with imaginary body. Ideally, you would want to do a physical warm-up so you're really in touch with all aspects of your physical self. So if that hasn't happened for you today, you could pause for a minute when you're watching this and just do a little warm-up, get everything loose, get in touch with everything from head to toe. Make sure your imagination is open and ready to be engaged, because as the exercise is, it's about imaginary body, so you want to be able to just jump in. So what we're going to do first is try to get your imagination going by you looking at a portrait, and this is sort of a cartoon style, and you could use any portrait for this. It could be realistic, cartoon, it could be period. Some points in your career, you might be playing a historical character or be in a piece that's based on someone from real life, and you'll really want to study and emulate that. But for this, it's really just digging into your imagination. So what I'd like you to do is to just look at this character portrait and let your imagination enter into this picture. And obviously, with all of the exercises that we're going to be doing in the next 10 or 15 minutes, you would want much more time with this, but we want to give you just a little taste. So you're looking at this, and right now just look at the character's feet. And if you want to stand up, that might be helpful too. So you might stand and just think about the character's feet. Certainly you can put your feet into the same position as the feet that are in this portrait. But then you'll want to feel, how do those feet activate? How do they move? They're in a little bit of almost a first position from ballet right now. But then how do they move? And are those feet very heavy? Are they thin and narrow feet? You can obviously see the shoes on the feet. And then thinking about working your way up to the legs of this character. What are those legs like under that clothing? Are those legs very strong and limber? Are they tight and rigid? Thinking about the legs, working your way up through the hips, working your way up through the torso of the character, working your way up. You can see the arms. You might take a moment to put your arms the way the character has the arms. But then what if this character was now moving and gesturing? How would those arms change from what position you're seeing? And even the costume this character is wearing, that should play upon your imagination. This tight coat and the collar that's tight. How is that neck? Is that just a short, narrow neck? Does it feel like it's very flexible or tight? And then looking at the whole face and the facial expression, you can get an idea of what type of character you'd want to create. And there's no right or wrong to this. It's your own interpretation working with your own imagination. So we might have half a dozen different interpretations of this. So just thinking about that face, even the hairstyle, and really taking that onto yourself via your imagination. Even though your physical body's not going to change right now, you can change it just in your imagination. And you can step into this portrait and become that portrait. So just take a moment to move, maybe try a few gestures, maybe even pick up an object that's near you, how you would pick up that object, how you would look out your window. Some of you have windows there, or open a door, or pick anything up, which can be imaginary or in your environment there. And then think about the breath. How does the breath change? Think about the breath of the character and take a little touch of sound as you exhale. And surprise yourself where your voice lands. Is it high? Is it low? Is it nasal, denasal? Is it a little rough? What is that voice that just tends to be? And let that sound develop into one word, and everybody just come up with one word that just seems to flow right out of this character. Just a word. Maybe it's just a hello. Maybe it's something else that comes to you.
Day.
Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Good day. Right.
And just take a moment now and take your hands and run them all the way up your body, up to the sky, and toss that character up there. So this character will be there whenever you might need that character. And Andrea is going to continue on with imaginary body.
Let's take our finger and just move it up and down and just feel what that feels like for you. And then we're going to look and using our imagination, we're going to see a kind little man. And we're going to notice that he's moving his finger the same way that we're moving our finger, just up and down. Really look at what he's doing and notice where he's moving his finger up and down, and then just you start moving your finger like his. How does that change? What are your joints able to move as easily? Are you moving it slowly, fast? What does that look like for you? Is there arthritis in the joint? Does he have arthritis? And we're just going to let that recognize and notice how that feels. And let that enter into your elbow, into your shoulders, into your legs, and come down your body all the way through your feet. And does that change your posture? How does that make you, if you want to move, if you feel like you can move, what does that look like for you? How does that movement work? Are you as stable on your feet? Are you moving as quickly? And then just notice what that feels like for your body. And just notice the changes in your body. How do you feel? Do you feel as energetic, as lightful? Is it harder? And as your posture has changed, do you look more like what the little man looks like? Now we are going to say thank you to our little old man and let him go back up into our imagination, into the imaginary world. And I'm going to hand it over to Anne.
Hi. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about that image that Wil introduced us to. And we're going to imagine that a cat, his cat, has just walked into the room. This is going to be the thinking cat. The cat has just walked into the room, and the cat has just lifted his tail. And the cat, who's yellow and marbled, is now moving around the man's feet. So in this, yes, he's moving, and it's a male cat. He's marmalade, and he's moving around, and his tail is up, and he is rubbing up against the man. That's right. The man now uncrosses his legs. He broadens his feet. He's now going to reach down, pick up the cat, and the cat crawls up his shoulders and hangs around his shoulders. And the weight of the cat makes the man slump. He slumps. He's now going to walk slowly with the cat on his shoulder, and the cat begins to make a sound. And the man echoes that sound. Mm. 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 You're now going to move toward the bookcase of fear. I'm walking over to the bookshelf, and the cat is then going to get off. going to pick up that image of the man with the marmalade cat, and up it goes, up into the sky, the man with the cat. And I send it off to Jeff.
All right, everybody. We have thrown some images up into that sphere of images, and now I'm going to invite you to pull one down. That image is Don Quixote, Don Quixote de la Mancha, the mighty knight, who has two forms, Don Quixote and Alonso Quijana. We're going to begin with Alonso Quijana, the man who believes himself to be Don Quixote. He is an older gentleman, so pull that image of Alonso Quijana down in front of you. See his feet. See his withered and older legs move up to his shaky knees, to his hips, move up to his torso, and his thin, frail arms. And as you look at him, step into that image and take that into your body and feel Alonso Quijana begin to move around. Maybe there's a struggle in reaching for something. This man who has lived a very long life, who has so many stories inside of him, written as if on his skin. And slowly, we're going to strengthen parts of our body and bring in Don Quixote, starting with our feet. Make those stronger. Fill those calves out with muscle. Bring it up to the hips and square yourself off. Strengthen up the torso to the chest. Strong arms. Forward gaze. And now begin to move around as Don Quixote. How is this different? How is your breathing different as Don Quixote? And take that image and wrap it all up and throw it back up into the atmosphere. And I'm handing it off.
I want to add something to your body. And if you go just neutral, in a neutral stance, and imagine that you have this a dark black mustache. It's long and it's curly. You know, it goes like this. The mustache is going whoop with a loop, yeah? So take a minute and imagine it, because we need to really put it there. And bring your focus to this place, to this mustache, and this will be your center of attention. And now start to move your neck. And let the mustache really do the work. And now turn to another direction. And how is it different from your movement, from your regular movement? And start walking with it. And it's black and it's curly. See it. And try to say a few words with it.
Hello.
Maybe say something to a partner here.
Hello.
This is ridiculous.
Is my reservation ready yet?
Preposterous.
Right this way.
Yeah. And
You are
can-
leaving.
we can do this and take it off and throw it away. And Paul, did you manage?
So here's the image. I'd like you just to really just take some time to look at every detail of this picture and let it start to absorb into you. The way she's sitting, how she's holding that glass, how she's setting her hand against her cheek, the pearls. What kind of a person is this that you would look at? What does she do for a living? What is her psychology? What is she thinking right now? How does her body move? Notice how she is sitting. Legs crossed. Look at all those rounded edges and the softness. Draw everything you can from that you see in that picture. And then close your eyes. Once you get a really good image of that picture. And slowly let that character start to drop into you, almost like Star Trek. It just drops down into you, pieces by pieces by pieces by pieces, down into your feet, into your legs. Maybe just incorporate those first. Maybe cross your leg just for a second. Feel that rounded sitting position. The roundness that she has, the gentility. And just let that continue to drop into you, into your torso, into your entire being. Your entire being is full of that person that you see in your imagination. And once she completely fills all of your body, just start moving parts, your hands perhaps, your neck, and ask her if you are embodying her. How do you move your arms? How do you move your hands? Let her show you and you can just do so. Then get up and walk around a little bit. How does she walk? And find her sound. Say hello.
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 You can say something that she would do to the person who is photographing her right now. What might she say to him or her? Does it look good?
Yes.
Did you want some wine?
Like me.
Hello.
Hello.
Maybe you should have some wine.
Perhaps. Good.
Another.
And if you go ahead and once you come back to a place of neutral and kind of just close your eyes. You're still this beautiful woman in front of you. Just close your eyes, see her, and just kind of release out of your body, Star Trek-ish, atom by atom, just kind of separates from your body and goes up to the picture that is her in your creative imagination. As she exists, continues to exist up there, but let it all go out of you and you come back to you in your body.
I have an object. And I am going to see if I can bring the camera to the object. Can anyone see it? Creepy. Okay, can you see?
Oh, yes.
Pinocchio head?
Yes. It's got a nose.
Hat?
It's green. Hat. Yes.
So what you can see of it. So I'd like you to imagine this is coming, dropping down from that unlimited sphere of imagination. And this is what you see so far. And what that is and what the rest of it is, you don't know. But when you're ready, imagine that it comes upon you, and maybe it gets you up, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Maybe it has a sound.
Oh,
No. No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
oh, it's beautiful to be alive today.
No.
Uh-oh, now it shows a little more of itself. What is that going to be? Repeat after me. My name is, and just let whatever comes follow. And repeat it until something comes.
My name is Peter.
My name is Heber.
My name is Curly.
I like
Papo.
Oh, and now you only have what you can see. You start to lose parts of it, and then more and more and more. Okay. And we send our image back up to the sphere, the unlimited sphere of imagination. And thank you, everyone, so much for
I want this doll.
for a wonderful, wonderful Chekhov on your feet exercising process. Let's jump to some feedback, some flyback over that, and just share a few thoughts about that, and then we'll talk more in more detail about the entire concept of characterization and specifically imaginary body. So Will, is there anything you want to bring forth?
Just that was a lot of fun. So thank you all for getting our imagination going and getting some different characters percolating here.
Does anyone have a thought or something they'd like to share, a discovery that you made, or an aim or an intent or a challenge that you've come up with? Jeffrey.
What I really loved about your assignment there, Lisa, was that we all were so serious, and we can sometimes think of ourselves as being so serious in our training that it's so nice to have a little bit of fun and really just play like a little kid. And that your particular image there was so playful and so much fun.
Sometimes you may take this 1 minute exercise. You don't have to really take a day or two to go inside of imaginary body. You can do it as easily, and it works. I mean, obviously it doesn't work like, you know, with all the details, but it works.
I think that's really an exciting observation, Ophir, because it is true that normally we take a great deal more time with this process. And there are many, many ways into imaginary body. And it is also true that it is exciting to be able to work up to being able to be responsive. And it's possible that those initial responses may appear, what we say, superficial. However, when we really allow ourselves to trust that we can quickly move into an imaginary body, we can quickly allow an imaginary body to permeate or envelop us. Mr. Chekhov often says we're inside the body, even if it's a smaller body than our own, and really yield to the body that even what starts as superficial will deepen if we allow it, and if we honor the inspiration coming even on a superficial level, it will naturally deepen like water will seep into the earth.
Yeah, I'm always afraid that my imagination won't be engaged, but I'm always so surprised by how easily, like as soon as Will picked up that picture, I'm going, oh yes, and I can feel it. And then when Paul brought the photograph, and then the little Pinocchio, my imagination is not going to fail me.
Inspiring, isn't it?
It is. It's the simplest thing.
Fantastic. Our imaginations are so unlimited, and I love how Michael Chekhov's technique really invites us to be able to sense the bounty of our unlimited imagination, and how all the psychophysical tools really lead us or prepare us to being responsive, immediately, instantaneously responsive in when we look at something like the Meisner technique, it's teaching you to be very responsive to the stimulus coming to you from a partner. And in Michael Chekhov's world, we have many, many partners, and our imagination is one of the most central. So we want to develop that same kind of ability to be spontaneously inspired through our creative individuality by the images that awaken for us, and in this case, the image of a body.
I find it extremely exciting, obviously. But when you read a play, I mean, obviously you're seeing the characters move around in space, and you're hearing them talk, you're seeing the story in your imagination. And I think this it's great for me to, as an actor, or as a teacher, you're seeing the person that you're playing. But to be able to find an image, or really to kind of let the image play in your head, and then allow that to become part of you. And thank you for allowing me to be, take you on in the universe. I found that as an actor, it made me more connected to my body. It made me, I was always like in here, in here and following. Internally, I know what's going on. Externally, I think I just let my body go where it wanted to go, thinking it would follow the character, where this can actually help shape me on the outside to fit my character, to fit what I'm thinking and feeling inside.
I just love how quickly you're like with the mustache, like just how quickly I had an image just based off of a mustache come to my head, come to my mind, and I could see clearly, like just like this guy with this big curly mustache. And it always just amazes me how effective it really is just to like have that movement, those gestures and qualities interact with the character that you're seeing.
Okay, so Andrea, I have a question for you, and I'd like you to answer it absolutely instantly with no hesitation about the mustache guy or person. Mm-hmm. What gender was it?
Male. What
color were his shoes?
They're the big balloon shoes, like cloud shoes.
What kind of pants did he have?
like a circus, the guy that takes your ticket at the circus.
Oh, fear. What kind of hands did he have?
Oh, big, hairy.
And what kind of neck did he have?
Oh, thick.
Okay, Paul, what kind of hair did he have?
It was longish.
Good. Will, what was his name?
Geoffrey.
Jeffrey. Jeffrey, what did you see we haven't mentioned?
I saw a cape. He was wearing a long cape. It was very beautiful, made of velvet.
Beautiful. Who else has something we didn't say yet that you saw? Do you like to share with this character? So
Huge nose.
Huge nose.
Huge nose.
Good, good. So isn't this interesting? We were given just the image of the mustache, the curly Q mustache, and we all filled it in. And we were not asked to identify any of those other things that I just asked you. And I asked you just to answer. And you could say, one could say, where did that answer come from? Well, I just made it up, right? And the question is, it's kind of like I cheated, I made it up, I didn't actually see it, or I wasn't conscious of it when I was working with it. And my question is, where did you make it up from? Upon what did you draw when you gave me your answer? That's your imagination. Whatever that is, there is some force, some source that you were in touch with all along, even if you might not have been aware of it. And that's a very exciting thing to know about your creative individuality, that it is seeing many, many more details than maybe what you are originally given. You may be given a very, very simple little description about one aspect of the character, and you can see from just one little facial feature, we got very, very full imaginary bodies that manifest for us. And it's pretty awesome to realize that all we had to do to become aware of those images that were within us was to ask them. Ask. We just asked a series of questions. So whenever we start to think or fear or worry about our creativity or our imagination being in some way limited, we can always lead our imagination through questions, asking questions, what Mr. Chekhov calls leading questions. I'm going to start talking a little bit about the whole art of characterization, because this series is about that, and to really look at what characterization is as a whole, and then we'll go into more details about the imaginary body. So characterization is one of the most deeply transformative aspects of Michael Chekhov's work. In fact, in the original On the Technique of Acting chart, it's up at the top of the chart in the original On the Technique of Acting that Michael Chekhov hand drew a version of for Mala Powers. So it took a high priority, and Mr. Chekhov says that every actor yearns for transformation. And many acting approaches simply give us the pathway to transform our feeling life or our thinking life. That they may be our will life a little bit, but generally to think about what we want and to feel what the character feels through our own personal emotional life, through as if we personally were the character. And what Mr. Chekhov says is that being able to trigger emotions and being able to engage objectives is part of the process that the average sort of non-transformational character will do successfully. So if we look at an actor like Harrison Ford, he lives in a state of fear in almost all of the stories that he tells. After 30 seconds into the film, he is in terror in some way. And the whole film is about him trying to overcome all these variations of terror that he's experiencing. So he's very good at the emotion of fear and danger, coping with danger, digging in and getting enough courage, and he's very clear on his objectives. But he is not what we would call transformational as a characterization. The expression, the manner in which he expresses his fear, and the facial patterns, the habitual movement patterns, the posture of his body generally is going to recur. Now, I love Harrison Ford. I think he's very entertaining and does what he does well. But it's a very, very different kind of thing than someone like Johnny Depp, for example, whose transformations of characterization are extreme, or Meryl Streep, very extreme, very strong changes in characterization. So characterization is what changes the how of the pursuit of objectives, and it changes the how of the expression of emotions. And those vary depending on, it affects, the characterization affects how much emotion is revealed and the way the emotion is revealed and the way the actions are taken. And it affects the entire physical body and the changes that are embraced by the artist to shift out of their own habitual expression patterns and into that of the character in this particular moment in time. So all of Michael Chekhov's tools that are geared toward characterization seek that as a means of transformation. So the early tools of that we begin with: expanding, contracting, molding, flowing, flying, radiating, and the archetypal gestures: push, pull, lift, smash, gather, throw, tear, penetrate, drag, reach. These basic gestures, and there are more if you want to work with more. That's just a good set of 10, that they prepare the body to be able, they prepare your artistic body and your imagination to be able to receive any imaginary body that you want to adopt or allow to bring you in. And the imaginary body is very much, in fact, I'm going to go back to our little character here and look at our character here. So we see the what is causing this character to move. Right? Who is actually, is the body itself moving? Is this piece of wood and felt moving? Right? Is it moving? Right? It's not. It's not moving. What is moving?
The strings.
The strings.
Yeah.
Puppet master.
Yeah.
And that, this little thing that's lying there is you, the actor. And the imaginary body and your creative spirit are pulling the string. Okay? Our task is to allow ourselves to have such freedom to yield control over our body to the image that we do not stop the image from moving us or sounding us, right? That we allow it to be the puppet master. And so that is just I hope that's an interesting concept for you to enjoy. Will, is there, before we go on, do you want to say anything more about the concept of characterization and or then take it into more about imaginary body?
Well, I just think that if you approach it this way, it can be incredibly comforting because you're not having to exert
Yeah.
incredible willpower and force anything. You are letting it happen to you and you're allowing it. I like that word, allowing it to move you, to change you. So you can really embody Chekhov's sense of ease that we've gone over before within characterization. So to me, this should be very freeing for the actor, this concept. And as Anne was saying, if you grow to trust your imagination and you know it's going to be there no matter what, then you're going to be able to maintain that ease and just let it flow.
So when we look at imaginary body as an overall concept, there are several critical points, and I feel, have really illustrated them well today. And they include what Will began with, which is the idea that sometimes you can start with an image that you see, a photo or a video, and these can be of real people like we had with Paul, or they can be caricatures like we saw with Will. We can use something completely from our imagination, and or we can use an object like I used an object. So anything can be a source of inspiration for the imaginary body. And that is really, really important for us to remember. If we have a historical character, one of the things that Mr. Chekhov suggests is to first go into your imagination, to go through your ideal artistic center into this unlimited sphere of the imagination that lives enveloping the earth, and invite yourself to see, hear, or feel. It's different for everyone, so you want to respect your own individuality. You may not see it like a video. So it might be to sense, to feel, to see, to hear the image, and try to extract or perceive or receive as many details as you can. And again, you can lead that through a dialogue with the character to say, show me your hair, show me your belly button, show me something you never showed anyone in life, turn around for me, show me your pajamas, show me your formal outfit, what do you wear when you go to the beach, ask it different questions. And even if I was doing Mary Lincoln or Abraham Lincoln, of whom I might have already historical images from movies and from history books or whatever, before I go to an actual picture of Mary or Abraham, I am going to go into my imagination and see what already lives there. And maybe I've never seen a picture of Ophelia, but maybe she was a real person. Or maybe I'm going to play the Tsarina of all the Russias, the last Tsarina of all the Russias, and there are pictures of her, but all I know is she was the mother of the last, Tsar of Russia, and what can I know just from my imagination from that before I go to the historical fact? And this will help give you your own creative individuality's base. And then you can go to the historical images, the films, the photos, the sculptures, and things like that. So Mr. Chekhov's invitation to the imagination is to go into your unlimited sphere first, and then resource, confirm, develop, and let it unfold through your research. When you do have the research, if you're working off of these things, then there are many pathways into your first exploration. So Will, do you want to share a couple of different ways that we've done putting on the imaginary body?
Sure. So obviously portraits, and that could be, as Lisa was saying, a cartoon, it could be a photograph, it could be an artist rendition, which I like the best because then an artist has interpreted something and then you go further with that interpretation. Costume pieces are a great way to do it. So it could just be a scarf. And what does that scarf inform you? How does it inform you? How does it change the rest of you? Or a certain hat, or even one glove. So costume pieces are a great way to do that. It might also be a prop. Maybe it's a certain style of glass and how that glass is formed, and how in your imagination would a certain character, why would they have this glass? How would they move with it? What would they do with it? And maybe it becomes a vase and isn't a glass anymore. It could be anything. So I think sometimes just using little impetuses like that can help. And then you can also just do the quirkiest things. I know that Lisa often leads us in very odd things, like that you have springs on the bottom of your feet, and then you have big lobster claws, and it looks unfathomable, but it also trains your imagination to be able to accept anything, that you have springs on your feet while you have lobster claws, and then you have a crazy sponge for a head. I mean, all of that. So I think just engaging in as many different varieties of exercises as possible really allows you to transform.
And so how we get in and out of the body has many varieties as well. So one of my favorite ways that Wil often does with portraits is he has us lie down on the ground and do a tension release exercise, and then imagine that the character's bodies, feet become our feet, and their body sort of settles onto ours, and then from there this body is what stands you up and begins to move you. And there's the technique of imagining that we have our own personal kinesphere, our aura, our personal atmosphere, and that we can step out of that, and we can sort of download from our unlimited imagination the body of the character in front of us, and we can step into that and put it on, literally foot by foot, put it on. That process of building the image in its own personal atmosphere can happen from a single body part that you see first, or you can go systematically. If you like systems, you can start from the head and go down to the feet, from the feet, or go up to the head. And again, those are just leading questions. You're asking, what are the feet? What are the shins? Are there shoes? Are there socks? Are there calluses? Is it, are they big? Are they little? Are they old? Are they young? And you just ask questions. Are there scars? What is there jewelry? What kind of belly button? What kind of genitalia? And what kind of wardrobe? And so just to see the body from the bone structure, the muscles, the texture of the skin, you can get very, very detailed with this. And when you do that, of course, you want to really let this process breathe. And there's as you form this, there are, again, different relationships you can have to it. So you can form it objectively separated from you, and you are just objectively watching it. And another process is you're allowing those parts that you're seeing to morph you as you're discovering them. That's another pathway to it. And then there's the process of, if it's separate, and you have it, you're looking at it objectively, you can rotate it. You can have it rotate, you can walk around it, you can ask it to begin to move, you can zoom in to a particular body part. So there are many different ways you can work with this, all before you actually allow it to move onto you. When you have a character you're developing over a period of time, you allow yourself some time to get this imaginary body, and you begin moving and doing a series of physical actions that the character might do in its everyday life. How does it walk? How does it talk? How does it move? And you might create an exercise that it has a clear beginning, middle, and end, and that has a couple of lines of dialogue. or you make up its own speech. And it's important that you really try to hear the imaginary voice that's produced out of this body. We were asked, how does this body breathe? And this is a very important question to lead your imagination with, and to really hear or feel that breathing pattern and feel that rhythm. So one of the interesting things that we discovered over years of working with the imaginary body is that sometimes people were being haunted by the body. They were having a difficult time separating from the body, clearing the body of the character off of them. So if the character was a difficult character, they couldn't get rid of the character, basically. And so we began systematically making sure that you actually remove. So Mr. Chekhov says that these images exist independently, and that they live in this sphere, and they come and they merge with us. And it's something that empowers us, and it empowers them as well, these creative spirits. And when this creative spirit merges with you and you get to experience it for a while, with all the care we've taken to create it and download it, if you will, to allow it to come, we also want to be sure to clear it off and restore it to that place. And you can name that place whatever you want. Your own little iCloud, your little iCloud up there, your little bubble, your planet creation, whatever you want to call it, you can do that. But we call that the unlimited sphere of the imagination there. So it's when you restore it to there, it is always available to you to access. And that's an exciting thing that you want to be able to, just really know and own in terms of giving yourself confidence there.
Lisa, can I say something?
Absolutely.
Sometimes when I get very intimidated by going to the grocery store, because I get very scared, I put on Lady Bracknell. I build it from my chest, and I try and make a fortress of my shoulders. I don't know. I live in a very scary place. I don't know.
Well, and that is a brilliant use of, and again, just shows us how Michael Chekhov's work is so wonderfully applicable for every aspect of our living. What you're doing is you are utilizing an imaginary body of Lady Bracknell in order to create a feeling of ease for this task that you have to do. I think that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And this is something we do instinctively, and it's something that we did very easily as children. As children, we adopted these imaginary bodies. You be the dog, I'll be the cat, let's run around. And you become the cat or the squirrel. And all the acting exercises where they have you be, an ice cream, as much as they're laughed at, those are simply imaginary body exercises. So they're really useful, and we don't have to use the imaginary body together consciously with a center, but we will see that, in fact, when we create an imaginary body, if we then ask it where its center is, it will probably know. And I have one person who couldn't do the imaginary body, that trying to hold all the different variations that were possible for a whole body was too difficult for him. But he just needed one body part. So for him, today would have been about the mustache. He would have gotten the mustache and he would have had that whole body like that. So each one of us has our own creative individuality. And with that, we want to respect and become sort of detectives, you might say, on the pathway to knowing ourself, knowing our creative self, and how to stimulate it. So just again to reiterate that Mr. Chekhov suggests that you use some of, all of, or none of these, depending on what you need. Okay, and when you're doing a role and you build this body, once you really have the body will start to come instantly for you. So it's exciting to know it won't take you that long. And it's a little bit like driving a car. Like the first time you don't understand what a brake is and what the accelerator is, and you don't understand the turn signal, and you don't understand how you can do all that while you're looking around in all directions for possible danger. And pretty soon you're just hopping in the car and you're driving.
Yeah.
But that's how it is with the imaginary body and the centers, with all the elements of characterization.
Like, I love that you just said, we did it all as children. I mean, we always think, oh, how do I do? It's so simple. I mean, we've been doing it since we were kids. We used to play a game where we swung people around, and then however they ended up standing, that would be the statue, and then someone would come in and buy a statue. And so the person would explain who they were and how they moved, and then they would move just because of their form. Perfect example.
Yeah, excellent. Spinning statues. I love that game. I'll share just a little bit of when I particularly used imaginary bodies, and that was for my one-woman show, Anton Chekhov's The Darling. And in that show, I play all the characters. And so each character had a very, very specific imaginary body. And I had I had 3 different husbands who were all very different. They, died one way or another. And then I wound up adopting a little boy. And the men, at various times, I became the men. So I shifted into the men, talking to, shifting back and forth between the storyteller, the character, and the men. But I never ever became the little boy. And after one of my shows, a woman came up to me and she said, "Oh, that little boy was just so cute. He was just adorable." And she did. It was like almost put on his imaginary body in describing how clear it came. So that's just another message about imaginary body. That is that you want to actually have imaginary bodies of any characters that you reference, any characters you speak of. And I just did an interview with Gail Cronauer, one of our certified teachers, whose role in The Vast of Night includes her telling a story about her child and about the child's father and her life going back in time. And it is very clear that Gail has done the depth of work on these images. It's very, very clear. And another use for imaginary body is being really clear when you're in dialogue, when you're in an audition, and who is your character in dialogue with.
Right.
Definitely not going to be the person that is there. And you may not even have a human being there. And when you're on a film set, you may be acting off an X mark. That person that you're actually talking to may be in makeup, and you may be hearing lines from a script supervisor and having to act and react off of an X mark. And so this is very important for you to be able to see the imaginary body and hear and feel the imaginary energy and performance coming to you, so you can be spontaneous and responsive to the image. So that's another use of imaginary body. And another one is today there's quite a bit of green screen. So if you're on camera, and or even you're acting, even in plays, there's so much media brought in now that you may be acting off of a screen.
Right.
And that screen may be the same every night. It's just already pre-recorded. And yet your performance needs to be spontaneous. So you need to look at a pre-recorded screen and imagine that it's live. Or if you're on a green screen, you need to really be able to embrace the atmosphere that is supposed to be there, and for the artist to be more and more developed in the imagination is increasing. And in addition to that, if Broadway was running right now, you would have about a 50-50 chance of not being human. You might be a train, you might be a giraffe, you might be a cat, you might be, you might be a teapot. You don't know. You have a big chance of not necessarily being a human. So it's important for us to understand that we need to be able to have these imaginary bodies. Another use for it is when we have what we call impediments. These are illnesses or dysfunctions, age. These are health-related changes. These are situations where you're shot, where you're beaten, where you're all these things where the thing is not actually happened to you and you must imagine it. So it's really important for the aging process, for the illnesses, all these things. And when we think about what really gets awards, we can say that crying on cue and getting angry on cue doesn't win awards. What wins awards is subtle performances where the character says the most simple thing in a way unlike the other. In a way, the actor's transformation is so pure, so deep, so powerful that they are revealing some aspect of themselves they have never revealed before. That's transformation, and imaginary body is a central tool in Michael Chekhov's technique to achieve that level of characterization and transformation.
Wow.
Good?
Yes, that was great.
Any other thoughts on characterization that you'd like to share?
I just wanted to say that the imaginary body is good. I mean, I'm acting in an adaptation of Chekhov's gun scenes, and I wasn't there in the rehearsals. I came after an actor has just left the show. So the immediate thing that I did, and I still use it till this day, I gave an imaginary body to each. I'm doing their few characters. So one character had really big and long hands, arms and big hands. And the other one, the doctor, it has a glass body. So it was very specific, very fast, and very good way to get into the characters.
It is particularly excellent for any time an actor has to play multiple characters. It's absolutely essential. And so that's great, Ophir. It sounds perfect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We will continue this exploration with characterization next week, and we will go into the thinking, feeling, and willing forces we do already have some videos on thinking, feeling, willing that Wil and I did. And there's an in-depth video on the trinity of the psychology, which is what we call the thinking, feeling, willing. So those are already out there. And so this is going to be expanding more on the very short video that Wil and I did. And we may get into some of the discussions about the what thinking forces are and what feeling forces are and what will forces are. And that may even expand into a second session. So we invite you all to come back for Michael Chekhov, the NMCA Way, On Your Feet and Insights. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, it was wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
My favorite person is...
One minute on your imaginary bodies.
We took a scene from Golden Boy. We all did the same scene.
Now in chaos.